Hey everybody, Mr. Mobbin coming back at you again with another A-Push video from topic 5.8, taking a look at military conflict in the Civil War. This is our third video in this series of videos on this topic. Last time we were here, we were talking about struggles that Lincoln is going to be facing in terms of trying to stop Robert E. Lee in the, basically, not him, but him, Robert E. Lee, in the early stages of the war. Lee is clearly outgeneraled George McClellan from the 7 Days Battle. He is also outgeneraled John Pope from the Second Battle of Bull Run. And so Lincoln is just struggling. He can't win with a cautious general. He can't win with an ambitious general. Lee is just, getting into the psyche of Union generals and is coming out on top for sure. And with this, recent string of victories, Lee is going to get even more confident in his abilities in terms of what he could do in terms of, moving the war in a bold new direction. Up to this point in time, the battles had been fought primarily, at least in the Eastern Theater, had been fought in Virginia. This time, though, Lee believes that if he can have Confederate forces invade the North and achieve a victory north of the Potomac, then that is going to put the Union on their heels and begin to put pressure on the Union, put pressure on Lincoln to maybe have to negotiate a settlement that would allow the Confederacy to formally separate from the Union. And so he will make his way towards Maryland. And as you can see here, not right there, but right here, making his way up here across the Potomac, heading towards what is going to be Sharpsburg, Maryland, just across the river from Virginia and near what is going to be Antietam. Now, following the loss at the Second Battle of Bull Run, Lincoln was under immense pressure to bring back George McClellan. The basic gist of it was that Lincoln did not have coming into the White House. And note, Lincoln's now only been in the White House about a year and a half. That's it. He does not come into D.C. with a whole ton of political connections. Unlike McClellan, who did have a ton of connections. He was wealthy. He came from a family that had tons of political connections. And so when Lincoln sacks, McClellan the first time after the 7 Days Battle, there was a lot of pushback from folks in the federal government. And once Pope fails at the Second Battle of Bull Run, Lincoln is basically pressured into bringing back McClellan for a second go-around. Now, note, Lincoln and McClellan, really do not get along very well. Lincoln views McClellan as kind of this arrogant little Lord Fauntleroy figure that doesn't really have the guts nor the brains to really do what it takes to win on the battlefield. Whereas McClellan views Lincoln as this, kind of oafish, hayseed, backwoods, clown that really shouldn't be president in the first place. And in fact, as we'll find out later, McClellan has eyes himself on becoming president of the United States. But nonetheless, they've been brought back into marriage once again, and Lincoln is hoping, despite their differences, that McClellan's going to be able to, do something to stop Lee. And he needs that help right now because, as we just said a moment ago, we are seeing Confederate forces now crossing the Potomac into Maryland. And this is going to lead to the Battle of Antietam. Now, Antietam is going to be a very significant battle. It's not considered one of the three, quote-unquote, turning point battles. But it is going to be a very significant battle for sure. And we'll get into some of that in just a moment. But anyhow, on September 17th, 1862, Lee's attempt in invading into the North is going to be countered by Union forces led by McClellan. Now, this is going to be a nasty, bloody battle. It's just going to be a one-day battle. But in that one day, you will see approximately 22,000 casualties. So think about what that means. 22,000 men in one day, either killed or wounded in a single battle. And this gives, once again, a little bit of an insight into how these battles were fought. once again, as I told you previously, this is really the last major war that is going to be fought in the Napoleonic style, where you basically meet on a flat field. You kind of line up in your formations, and you just march towards each other. And every so many yards, you stop, you aim, you fire, and those that are wounded fall back, and those that don't kind of get back in their lines and move forward, and you just do it again until you get close enough that you charge with bayonets. Now, back in the days of the War of 1812, for example, and people were using muskets, you could get away with doing that full frontal style attack because muskets were not all that accurate. But times had changed technologically, and now these soldiers are now using rifled guns, rifled barreled guns, which now allows for soldiers to shoot with much more accuracy, being able to hit with regular accuracy hundreds and hundreds of yards away. So some of these battles like Antietam are just going to be a bloodbath. Guys are basically just marching right into a hail of bullets and getting cut down left and right. And even though this is going to be a horrifically bloody battle, and even though there's going to be a lot of losses on the Union side, McClellan's going to be able to hold off Lee's invasion. For the first time in the war, it looks like Lee is mortal. He cannot achieve his objective, and Lee is forced to retreat back into Virginia. So this is a major victory, at least it seems, for McClellan, that he has kind of, withstood the invasion of Lee. He's pushed them back into Virginia. Things look good for McClellan, and Lincoln's excited. And when Lincoln finds out, he basically tells McClellan, well, keep going. Don't stop. You got Lee on the run. Go get him. Capture him. Stop him. And we can end this war right now. But once again, McClellan's case of the slows comes back. And McClellan is convinced that on the other side of that river, on the other side of the Potomac, in Virginia, there's a lot more reinforcements there for Lee, and that if he leads his men into there, it's going to be going right into an ambush. And so McClellan won't do it. And Lincoln is so exasperated with McClellan's actions, his tactics, that he does just outright fire him this time. It's not just a demotion. He's gone. He's fired. And so Lincoln, once again, when he thinks that he's got something going, it just falls apart again. And so, Lincoln is really going to be scrambling to find quality leadership, and he's not even close to being done yet. But nonetheless, it is an important ability to stop Lee. And note, this is going to be significant on a couple of different levels. First off, Lee was hoping with a successful invasion into the North that this would send a message to foreign nations that, hey, the South can achieve their independence. Lee was kind of hoping that Antietam would be the Confederate version of, Saratoga, like in the Revolutionary War. But it doesn't come to pass. And so a lot of that foreign assistance that they were looking to hope to gain with a key victory here is not going to materialize. And on the other side, for Lincoln, even though, many historians would not really consider this to be, a true total victory for the Union, because McClellan does not follow Lee into Virginia and actually stop him, it is enough of a non-loss for Lincoln for him to be able to move in a very important political direction. Lincoln, as we're into this war now for about a year and a half, Lincoln's realizing that this is such a hard-fought war, that the sides are so hardened on this, that to restore America to this divided society again on slavery after, hundreds of thousands of men are going to die in this conflict, that it's just not going to work long term. In other words, if you allow the end of this war to lead to a continuation of slavery, all that this will do is lead to another future second Civil War. And Lincoln comes to the realization that the goals of this war have to go beyond simply keeping the Union together, that it does have to take on a moral component to it. In other words, this war has to be fought to end slavery. And that is one heck of a bold political ask at this point. And Lincoln can't go to Congress and promote this idea of fully ending slavery, fully emancipating slaves, at least even in the areas that might get captured in the South, he can't do it yet politically, because to do it after a series of losses would basically send the message that Lincoln was weak, he was desperate, he was looking for something that could kind of turn the tide, and this is going to lose him a lot of support in those border states that had stayed in the Union, Kentucky, West Virginia, Missouri and whatnot, but they were still kind of holding on by a thread. And to go there when you're politically weak is only going to make things more fractious with those border states. So Lincoln needed something that could be sold as a victory, and that's where Antietam comes in. So Antietam gives Lincoln the strength politically to start to move in the direction to what will be, at the end of the year, the issuing of the Emancipation Proclamation. But we'll get to that later. Now, with the firing of George McClellan, Lincoln once again is looking for a new general to lead the Army of the Potomac. He's looking for somebody that's going to have guts, is going to have courage to roll right into Virginia, take down the weakened Lee, and win this thing. And he finds a new man, and that man is Ambrose Burnside. And yes, all right, he has got the sickest chops in the Civil War, no question about it. And fun fact, in case you didn't already know it, his flamboyant use of facial hair is going to lend the name to what we now call sideburns. So General Burnside is going to be the namesake for Sideburns. How about that? Now, Burnside is going to be given the keys, so to speak, of the Army of the Potomac, and Lincoln tells him, get back into Virginia. Go find Lee and crush him. Let's do this. And, Burnside's gung-ho to do it. And that's going to lead him down towards Fredericksburg. And once again, going up against good old Robert E. Lee. And Lee is certainly going to have his way with Burnside. It's not even really going to be close. Union forces once again routed by, the magician of Virginia, Robert E. Lee. And of course, just like so many before Burnside, Lincoln's going to fire him and have to move in another direction to find somebody that can stop Lee. Now, as this is happening, and I should make mention, as this is happening, also keep in mind that other aspects of the war are also taking shape. For example, if we take a look at the Hampton Roads area, you're going to see the Battle of the Ironclads. The USS Monitor versus the CSS Merrimack, or AKA the Virginia, are going to be the first iron-sided ships that will go into battle. Now, when they do, engage in early 1862, it's not really a significant battle between these two. They basically kind of clang into each other for the most part. But it does show that the U.S. is moving in a new, bold direction in terms of naval technology. And so, this is going to be the last war that's going to be fought for the United States with wooden ships. You can see the future here with the Battle of the Ironclads. And as this is taking place, and as Lincoln is just pulling his hair out in Virginia, something else is shaping up out west. If you take a look at the Western Theater, you'll see that a young officer by the name of Ulysses S. Grant is starting to have some success. Some key victories at the Battle of Fort Donelson, which is going to be, very, very, very good for the Union forces. There's going to be well over 10,000 Confederate casualties at Fort Donelson up here in Tennessee, and an even bigger victory down here at Shiloh on the Tennessee-Mississippi border. So Grant is starting to key in on some victories. Now, granted, Grant doesn't have to fight Lee, but this is some good news at a time where Lincoln was desperate for some good news. In addition, we're also going to be seeing Admiral David Farragut lead American naval forces to victory at the capturing of New Orleans. Now, of course, as you can imagine, New Orleans is going to be critical down here because New Orleans is basically the mouth of the Mississippi River. And so with the capture of the mouth of the Mississippi River, this brings us one step closer to what is part of the initial strategy, capturing the Mississippi and dividing the Western Confederacy from the rest of it. So things are not going well in the East, but things are starting to go a little bit better in the West, enough to at least keep the Union Army in the game. All right. And we'll leave it there for 1862. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.